This is a special report from About Space Today.
Welcome to Special Report. I'm David Denault. Recently, there have been some interesting reports resurfacing in the news on UAPs, most commonly called UFOs. And these reports claim that we are not alone and that we have made contact with extraterrestrials. Next, as America and the world is listening to Special Report on About Space Today. D&D Cruise and Tours is the official agent for About Space, and we invite you to come fly away to all-inclusive resort island destinations, or a cruise vacation from Port Canaveral, and even visit the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, or just come and see the parks. Call for a discount cruise or an island getaway or the Florida beaches. Call today. The call is free, and so are our services. Call 877-747-8631. That's 877-747-8631. We are Florida's group travel specialists. Welcome back. Reports are resurfacing in the news on UAPs. Well, one such report dates back to February the 20th, 1954 in Palm Springs, California. President Dwight D. Eisenhower is on a winter break, and in the middle of the night, he mysteriously disappears.
When you're president of the United States, we should know where you are at all times. But this one evening, in February of 1954, Eisenhower just goes missing. To the point where the Associated Press put out a wire saying he died. He died in the middle of the night. And then 2 minutes later, they retracted it and said, no, our mistake. And the next morning, he shows up at church. So something happened in the middle of that night that is obviously off the books, unexplained, and really strange.
And where was President Eisenhower during the time he disappeared? Well, some accounts say he had a very unusual meeting.
There's a story that on February 20th, 1954, President Eisenhower had a meeting with extraterrestrials. This took place at an airbase. Eisenhower was presumably asked to renounce and give up nuclear weapons. And in exchange, the extraterrestrials would give the US technology which would change the world. The story is that Eisenhower turned down this deal because he couldn't be sure that the Soviets would do the same.
True or not, it's becoming more and more difficult to conceal what might have taken place, since Edwards Air Force Base is not that far from Palm Springs. Next, you might remember the congressional hearings recently with sworn testimony from David Denault that we have recovered alien spacecraft and bodies. A retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral has come forward and tells Russ Cohart of News Nation he believes whistleblower David Denault's claims of a secret UFO retrieval program run by the Pentagon is real.
Tim Gallaudet has spent a career serving his country. First in the Navy, working in areas like aircraft carrier combat operations and assisting Navy SEAL teams during counter-terrorism operations. Tim, you've said publicly that you think UFOs, UAPs, are the story of the century. Now, I happen to agree with you, but why do you say that?
Oh, absolutely. We're being visited by non-human intelligence with technology we really don't understand, and with intentions we don't understand at all either. And this is just one of those great big questions. Are we alone or not? And we're learning we're not.
Now that really does surprise me to hear that from a former very high-ranking flag officer in the US Navy, to actually say you're stating categorically that you believe NHI, non-human intelligence, are real.
Absolutely, I do.
Why do you say that?
Well, for a number of reasons that have been coming out. Congress has been informed and they've drafted legislation and they've passed legislation, for example, to establish a DoD office to look at it. They did the same, NASA did the same with a UAP study team. And we know from the UAP hearing this summer that there are crash retrieval programs. And I have 100% confidence that the testimony by David Denault and the other witnesses is accurate.
Wow. That's a big thing for you to say that, isn't it?
It is. It's astonishing. And that's why I wrote that article in The Hill. I don't understand why more people are not interested in this. I mystify the lack of intellectual curiosity.
You know, the moment for me was the Schumer Amendment, when the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, put into proposed legislation language referring to non-human intelligence over 20 times.
Exactly. That's the statement. And Congress doesn't act at that level without information.
Clearly, you believe there's a cover-up.
Yes.
Why are they covering it up? I mean, you're probably one of the more highly cleared public officials from the military, past serving, who's basically come out publicly and said, you think this is real. Why do you think there is this cover-up? What are they concealing?
Well, sure. This is technology we're still trying to learn about, and it could give us an advantage in any military conflict. And so that's a good reason to not disclose the nature of the technology. And I think for the foreseeable future, we don't want to release and disclose all of the technology that we've recovered. However, I think it's about time that we do disclose that we are in contact with non-human intelligence. That's what needs to be put out there in the public.
The problem, Tim, is that a lot of the government is still in absolute denial. I mean, you talk as a fact about a crash retrieval program, and we're talking here about retrieved non-human technology, aren't we?
Yes. So what you have going on right now are, again, legacy classified programs, special access programs, and without congressional direction and White House policy, that's not going to change.
It might be decided by very senior people in the Defense Department that we shouldn't reveal technology because it's a weapon, a potential weapon. It's a potential advantage in a future war. You can understand that, can't you?
Absolutely. I think some of the technology should remain classified. We don't want it to get in the hands of our adversaries. However, the fact that we're being visited by non-human intelligence, that is what I think needs to be disclosed. Now, granted, it's not an easy thing for a government to do, because then they're going to admit that they don't really know what they are or their intentions, and it makes us look vulnerable. True. But I think as a society, we're ready for this. We've turned that corner.
And Nick Pope, a former British intelligence official, also asked,
and so what we've seen is this subject increasingly moving out of the fringe and into the mainstream, which makes me wonder, what is it they're not telling us? The president, particularly in his capacity as commander-in-chief, can make that call. And maybe we will see it one day soon. My fellow Americans, people of the world, we are not alone.
So what do you think? Real or not? Have we made contact? Let me remind you to join Dawn Meyer, Space Coast News Editor, on Fridays for America in Space, and listen on Tuesdays for This Week in Space with John Gomez. Thanks for joining me from your home or where you work, and if you enjoy our reports, click like and subscribe. I'm David Denault.
This has been a special report from About Space Today.